And for
There
me,
we go. Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America Podcast. It is Wednesday, October 26th, 2023. I am Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right.
And I am Ted Rall, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the left.
Neither of us got to be Speaker of the House. I'm kind of deeply disappointed by this. I think we would have been awesome. Could you imagine? You get a big gavel.
Well, the thing is, things were going really well. And then I was informed that I was one vote short. And I was like, who is it? Who is the fucker? Who is it? And I hear in the background, it was fucking Clovis. Clovis blocked me.
Eye of New York?
So I was like, all right, fucking quadruped motherfucker. Like no wet food for you for a week. That's probably why he blocked me, but whatever.
This will be the only podcast where you will hear the phrase quadruped motherfucker. I guarantee it. Guaranteed. Okay, so Mike Johnson. Yes, Mike Johnson is the new speaker. Everyone
Not
says,
to be confused with fellow cartoonist Mike Thompson, who's different,
but also very nice.
I would much rather have Mike Thompson as the speaker.
Oh God, I'd vote for him 3 times and 6 times on Sunday. Yeah, but Mike Johnson is the new Speaker of the House. Everyone is saying how nice he is. Have you read about
like my Johnson?
It's all about your Johnson, isn't it?
Well, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is. Anyway, so everyone's saying how nice he is, but if you read what he's written and what he has said in the past, not so much. Very much a MAGA Christian conservative. And my question to you, Ted, I wanted to save this for the podcast. I'll spring it on you right now. And this will shock our listeners, and it shocks me even saying it out loud, was what the Republicans did in the House, three-dimensional chess. Let me explain. Okay, so they get rid of McCarthy. They didn't think he was MAGA enough. And he actually had the temerity to reach across the aisle and work with the Democrats. Okay, got GONE, we get rid of them. They then have all, this conga line of MAGA nutbags and there's holdouts for others who say, no. Emmer was vetoed by President Trump, telling his minions not to vote for him. So now Mike Johnson comes up. Mike Johnson is MAGA world's wet dream. They heart this guy hard. He is everything. He is he's not just an election denier. He helped write the amicus brief to disallow the election. This
played
guy
a major role. Could have been prosecuted, maybe. Might still be.
Well, fingers crossed. But he's nice. He's so nice.
And he also is anti-gay.
Ted.
Anti-abortion.
Not just anti-gay. Not just anti-gay. Virulently, violently anti-gay, which makes you think
he's probably gay.
Yeah, it almost always turns out that way.
Yeah.
So Matt Gaetz gets a win. He gets was Matt Gaetz, who I think was a piece of shit, frankly. But now I'm thinking today, give it a second of thought. Were they playing, like I just said a second ago, three-dimensional chess, and they played us so they could get a guy like this in the speakership?
I don't know. Three-dimensional chess to me implies that they knew that this would be a likely outcome. And I doubt that's true. But what is true is they won. That's for sure true. And so they may well have predicted and seen this coming. I mean, look, we know that they conspired for months and months and months behind the scenes, the Freedom Caucus 8, to make this happen. And obviously, look, they're not stupid. They know how to count, and they must have figured that there would be no way for the conference to come together other than behind someone from the far right like that. There was no way they were going to get to 216 votes or whatever, depending on who was out, right? Sometimes it's 214, sometimes it's 216, sometimes it's 219. Anyway, the point is they needed the pretty much a unanimous Republican conference, and it may well be that they planned it out that way. It could be. I would not rule it out, but I think it's like a 50-50 chance on that. What is 100% certain I mean, it's kind of funny. My co-host on my radio show on Sputnik this morning, Angie Wong, she said, "Oh, Matt Gaetz learned his lesson." I'm like, "Yeah, he learned his lesson. He won. I
Yeah.
mean, he got
Yeah.
exactly what he wanted. MAGA is now firmly in charge of the House of Representatives. I mean, bear in mind, of course, Scott, he has the same problem Kevin McCarthy does. There can be a motion to remove him, to vacate the chair, right? Like that can come from any one person. That rule still exists.
One congressperson. And I'm wondering if behind closed, very discreetly, very quietly, they're going to vote to get rid of that. And what was the rule before? What did the vote have to be prior to that? Would that just be a majority?
I think it was a simple majority
okay,
to vacate the chair.
Interesting. Well, I think you're right. I suspect that, like I said, very quietly, they're going to change that and get rid of it. If this guy's
problem solved.
This guy doesn't have the experience. He's never been a committee chairman. He's never been a whip. So his position.
He's only been in Congress for less than 6 years.
Yeah, I think he was a whip of some kind, like a. But you have to.
He doesn't even have 3 full terms in office. He ties with some obscure dude figure from the 19th century. He's basically just barely the second most inexperienced speaker in U.S. history after some guy from 1845. But Newt Gingrich, he ain't. Tip O'Neill, he ain't. Max Cannon, he ain't.
To be in his position, you have to have like an encyclopedic understanding of the rules and the procedures of the House in order to get like things done. I guess there's people out there he could hire. I mean, it's still
sure. Yeah,
and
that's not so hard. Get some Robert's Rules of Order nerd to help him out. But you also need. I mean, the thing is, no one in the Senate knows who he is, and normally the House Speaker liaises with top leaders of the Senate. Sort of they're kind of like a micro Ways and Means Committee, and then also. I mean, basically, the main job, right, is cutting deals with the other side, with the Senate, to push the members of your own caucus together. Which I guess in this case, he certainly got them to unify, but that's not to vote for him. But Republicans were exhausted, and they were not happy about the way they were looking in the press, and also they know they have a government shutdown headed their way. And they wanted to approve aid to Israel. So there's they had a lot of reasons to come together and just do something. I don't think Scott, you're the resident conservative here. I think everything it's over, right? It's not over. It's with Republicans. It's I'm not sure he's the speaker necessarily until, January 1st, 2025.
Right. And I agree with you. Or he could be, and they could view him as, purely a placeholder. The Democrats, up until yesterday, played this beautifully because they ate, as you and I have mentioned, they ate a big bowl of shut the fuck up, and they just let the Republicans eat their young. But then the vote happened, and this is where I'm thinking that they may have said they can, don't forget the Trump playbook is fatigue. Just run out the clock, make these people just so they finally throw up their hands and go, okay, fine. And that's, if you watch the vote, and I watched it live yesterday because, dork. The Republicans who were holdouts for all the other candidates finally voted for Johnson, and they got applauded. And they're just going, okay. And the look on their face was, this was making them look bad. And your co-host, Angie, had a great point on your show that money was drying up. And that's a big deal coming into a very competitive election year. But my point I was driving at is, yes, the Democrats acted up until the vote. After the vote, apparently, and I didn't know this, Jeffries, the minority leader, makes a little speech. It's supposed to be like, hey, congratulations, we're great, you look great, I love your shoes, here's the gavel. Jeffries launched into this speech, Ted, that was just so fucking inappropriate. It could be given by a Republican. It was, the Democrats are for goodness and kindness and want and all sorts of yumminess, and the Republicans want to eat your babies. It was, I'm exaggerating, of course, but Jeffrey's speech was so tone deaf and so okay, we have a new speaker. Let's work together. Let's look at the issues facing America. A lot of bullshittery. You and I both know it.
Mhm.
But, and maybe you would say that what he said was just being honest. It's purely more honest than the bullshittery I just suggested. But that wasn't the time. The time for statesmanship comes, and should stand up and say, this is a time of congratulations, of bipartisanship. We're going to, yes, now we have a speaker. Now we can do the people's business. And that's not
let's hope this all works out well. No, well, that's what Biden did. Obviously, Biden has, several millennia of experience on Capitol Hill. So he knew what to say, and he said the right thing. He, as Cicero personally taught him. And so that's like totally fine. But that Jeffrey, I didn't hear about the Jeffries thing. You're right. It's tacky. I mean, I don't think it matters really.
It doesn't. No one else watched
in this incredibly toxic atmosphere that we're in. But yeah, no, I take your point. That's a bad look for the Democrats for sure.
And now we're going to look to the future. But one more point I wanted to make during this whole thing was when they announced that it was Johnson. I'm sorry, I'm giggling because apparently I'm 13. You know who was standing next to him when he made when they said this is our nominee?
Ms. Vagina.
Yes, Bobbitt. Hand job Bobbitt was right next to the Johnson when he announced.
So weird.
I'm thinking, what the optics? Why would you do that?
Wow. Well, and toxicity begins forthwith. Just before we started recording this podcast, a news alert flashed across my phone informing us that Marjorie Taylor Greene is forcing a motion to discipline Rashida Tlaib for alleged quote unquote anti-Semitic activities, i.e. complaining about what Israel is doing to Gaza.
Yeah, how weird is now let's look forward, because this is a good segue. Looking forward now with the Johnson era in the House.
What will get done? I guess what's next?
Okay, so you talked about
we have an impeachment proceeding coming up at
yes, where you have the investigation. And if you talk to our Democratic friends, there's nothing there. There's no evidence. Nothing's come of this. I'm going, are we watching the same thing? Because there's something there.
Did you see the reports coming today about how the FBI field offices had well over 40 leads from 40 different sources concerning corruption by President Joe Biden, his brother Jim, and of course everyone's favorite son Hunter, and that the word came from up high. You shall dismiss all of these leads as Russian disinformation, which of course they were not. And so
no, the stories about Jim Biden, and God bless the New York Post for staying on this story, because they're the only ones doing it.
That's true. They're doing great work. Honestly, if they weren't the New York Post and they weren't doing this topic, they could really have a case for a Pulitzer.
Oh, I think that, they do have a case for it, but they won't. I think
be considered.
More to the point, the board. By the way, another cartoonist got this. Did you get the survey from the Pulitzer board? Oh, you got it too?
Yeah.
Okay, please tell our listeners what it is.
So I applied for the Pulitzer in 2 categories. So I got 2 emails about this. I applied as a columnist and a cartoonist, so I could lose twice as much. And so I did. Of course, they snubbed me as usual. And I really have to think I don't know, Scott, should I still continue to apply as a columnist maybe?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll do that. Anyway, so so I got this survey. It's one of those surveys like, how did we do kind of surveys after the cable company. You talk to the cable company. It's like, from level from 1 to 5, how satisfied were you with our service? So they said, please fill out this survey. It seems like it's anonymous, right? It's one of those, like, they don't ask you your name. But so I was curious, and I thought they were going to want to know about the experience of the application process, and also whether we what we thought about the judging and whether it's fair and transparent. And no, not at all. They weren't interested in those things at all. They wanted to know our race, whether we were white or a person of color. They wanted to know if we were male, female, or transgender, or whatever. It was all a bunch of like wokeness questions. I wish I'd screenshotted it because it would have been fun to post. I could still do that because I only did one. I only did the one. But yeah, basically it was all these dumb questions. What it seems to me like this was part of a DEI initiative, right? They're trying to figure out if they're giving enough Pulitzers away to non-white dudes like us.
Yeah. No. You and I both recall, how many years ago was it? Where
I'd say about 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah, the head of the Pulitzer board, African-American woman, was standing there gleefully, practically giggling, saying that how
her first year,
all the major awards went to people of color, almost all of them. And like, golly, I just thought journalism was like, we covered the story well, right. or more to our point, we drew the cartoon well.
And yeah, none of that was for people who say like, isn't it possible? Look, it's not possible for the simple reason that historically journalism has been so white and so male dominated, and it still is in many newsrooms. So quite simply, it's just not possible that with like 30 or 40 categories, that all of them could go to a person of color, because there's just demographically aren't enough journalists of color to win those awards, to win that many awards. I mean, if you think about it, if roughly 1 out of 4 of them was a person of color, I don't think it's nearly that high, but let's say it were, then roughly speaking, roughly 1 out of 4, a little more, a little less, should be winning these awards, all other things being equal, unless you think, Black journalists are better than white journalists or whatever. I don't think, none of that makes any sense to me at all. And that's not the case at all. I mean, it was so crazy lopsided. They very clearly put their thumb on the scale, and this survey just proves that that's what they're after.
Yeah. No, you should, if you could copy that and send it to me, I'd love to see it, just because I didn't get one. But
you didn't apply.
It's been a few years since I applied, so maybe it's just okay.
I will be happy to send it to you.
Yes, please, because this is outrageous.
And by the way, this is not a loaner. You don't ever have to give it back to me. It's all yours.
I can store the papers in my bathroom.
You can. Oh, that would be an appropriate location. Yeah.
Okay. On that note, we're going to.
I would put them in Clovis's litter box, but then that would give him even more reason to be angry at me.
And me, like, for reasons I'm still unaware of. It's sort of like being married. People are mad at you for no reason that you know of, but
that's why.
It's probably valid. Okay, so you're listening to the DMZ America podcast. I'm Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
I'm Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
Coming up next, a story that just keeps on rolling along, and now we know why. We'll be back right after this.